Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to the July 17th meeting of the Stayton City Council. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you again for coming. Is there any additions to the agenda from council or anybody else? I'll do it, yeah. If there's not any additions from the council, I will make an addition to the agenda. That is to add the agenda of merit increase for the city manager when it comes time. So we'll add that to the agenda maybe at the end. Is that okay? Or do you want to do it at the beginning? Okay. We'll do it under general business then. Okay. Thank you. Yep. Is there any declaration of ex parte contacts, conflict of interest, bias, etc.?
For the, Mr. Mayor, for the vote for the teen center, I do volunteer there. It's not going to affect my decision at all.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? I will note that Councilor Ort's been excused tonight, so all the other councilors are here. And with that, we will move on. Is there any appointments? No appointments tonight? Nope. All right, this is the opportunity for public comment again. And again, I ask that things be civil. Limit your time to 3 minutes, please. State your name and your address when you come forth. And it's not an opportunity to have an exchange of dialogue. It's just an opportunity for you folks to give us your thoughts on the matter. So just want to make sure I get that cleared. And with that, we will do Mr. Baez. Miguel?
Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify,
Sure,
are we
go
doing
ahead.
general public comments or public
great
comments
question.
related
Yeah,
to
thank you.
specific topics?
So this is an opportunity for, I guess we could do it either way. So we can either do comments that you have tonight specifically to an ordinance, like the reading of 1068 or 1063 again, or 1068, or if you want to give general comments right now, you can. Okay. You want to do it that way? We're good? Okay. So if we do testimony now for 1063 or 1068, there won't be an opportunity when we get to this. I guess, yeah, there won't be an opportunity when we get to the actual agenda item. So I just want to make sure that's good. Everyone good with that? Okay, good. Go ahead, sir.
Honorable Mayor, thank you for allowing me to speak. Council members, my name is Miguel Valles. That's V as in Victor, A-L-L-E-S. I live at 2289 Woodcock Avenue here in Stayton. One of the things I wanted to bring up, I spoke at the Homeless Task Force meeting about the use of parks for campsites for the homeless. And I just got word yesterday that I wasn't familiar with the hiking trail that's right behind the middle school versus the Mill Creek Park, which is in that area where that teen center is. This is my second year being out here. I purchased a home, brand new home. I think our average cost in the communities are about $500,000. My wife and I, we moved down here. I'm retired. We're both retired. We moved up here because our kids moved up in this area, and we wanted to be closer to our grandkids and our family. I came up here to look at a home with my daughter when she was going to buy in that same area. Fell in love with the community, very friendly community. It reminded me back in the day when I was a young kid and the areas where we lived at. You can't find those places anymore, but I found one here. The area it's a beautiful area. You got nice hiking trails, the waterfalls, the rivers, fresh, clean air. You can't beat it. I've seen what happens to the to communities in the cities that allow the homeless to camp out in the city parks. It just you get a lot of drug use. You get a lot of trash, and it impacts not only your the residents in the area, but it also impacts your police and fire department. The crime increases. You get people that overdose, where fire department's having to come out, police are having to come out. It just gets out of control really fast. I've seen it happen, and as a new member of this community, I just wanted to bring that up, as I did on that task force that I spoke at. I'm just asking that you reconsider an area that the city may own that's away from people's homes and properties, because not only that, it's you get a lot of theft and stuff like that. And I noticed that the possibility of it being by that teen center, so I'm hoping that you take into consideration the safety of the kids that go to that teen center, and not only that, your middle schools that are around here as well. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say, is just to, if you would, take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Pease.
Hi, Greg Pease, 145 West Virginia Street, Stayton, Oregon. Been out here for 24 years, raised our kids, work in Salem, unfortunately, have to deal with the homeless in there. I'm just curious why we're putting such a precedence on the homeless over our citizens that live here. We're going to want to have homeless camping behind the school that has 7 and 8 year olds at it, or 8 and 9 year olds at it. The drug and theft problems. I now have to pay an additional tax in Salem because I work there, because of the additional costs to the law enforcement of dealing with the homeless and all the problems that come with that. I don't see why we're concerned with the homeless. It's not our problem. They're not from our community. They're coming out here because you're giving them somewhere nice and easy to hang out and make life easier for them. Why is that our problem? Why are we going to have to pay more taxes? This is going to cost our city money in law enforcement and with the medical care for these people. I don't see the point of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm probably going to screw up the last name, but Deanna from Sublimity. Sorry.
My name is Deanna Frickle. I reside at 12326 Gulf Lane Southeast. Can you hear me?
Is that button on, the green one? Just, there you go.
Okay, my name
Much
is
better.
Deanna Frickle. I reside at 12326 Gulf Lane Southeast. And I have been kind of challenged with the homeless in this community because I own a property here, and the businesses have been impacted by the homeless, whether they're scaring off and intimidating their customers. They sleep on their front porch and their customers do not feel comfortable coming in. I was a witness by the video of the person who set the fire here at the community center on purpose. It was a very purposeful action. He was being treated very nicely by all the staff who came through to cleaning up the place. We've had people, when we have come in the area, who have threatened myself and my husband's lives. These people are not just, they lost their job and now they need a home. These people are criminal actions, criminal mindset, druggies, have mental health issues. And it is a huge concern that they are accepted into this community when this community did not vote for the legalization of drugs and the different proposals that went to the state. I believe Portland and Eugene predominantly were the ones in Oregon who voted for these actions, and I think they should get the repercussions of that. My father owned a place in Portland, and I have the next door information that does not go onto the news. Every day I'm getting how cars are stolen, people's homes are invaded, even up to the second floor. Someone turns around on their computer and they've got a homeless person staring at them as a woman in their own home. And their homes are being taken over by the homeless, and they have a hard time evicting them. If they're gone for a few days to help a family member, they come back and they can't evict somebody from their own home. I've heard they're having right now a lot of shootings they're complaining of, and from everything that I can see, opening the door a little bit just invites all of that, and it destroys a community. It destroys the value of the community, and no one wants to live there, and all the businesses leave. I'm concerned highly for the welfare of the children and the young teens, with invitations for drugs, alcohol, violence, rape. All those things are being put in their face. These people do not care if they are pooping or peeing or taking off their pants in close proximity to other people. They will poop, they will pee in the waterways, of which go from here all the way to Almsville and Salem, and that is not okay for animals who are deer and for people who want to enjoy the waterways or fish or something like that. So please reconsider all of that. Send them back. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Lemke.
Thank you. Chris Lemke, 42240 Kingston Lions Drive, Stayton. I'm also a downtown business owner. Mayor and council members, thank you for allowing this opportunity for us to express our concerns regarding the ordinances to be created. I have heard it stated several times that decisions are being made to help avoid litigation. Unfortunately, the reality is that you may not be able to avoid litigation. Many municipalities will be challenged over these choices. What you decide here will have impacts to our community throughout the canyon. As avoiding any litigation is not probable, please provide ordinances that are direct, clear, and strong to support residents and businesses, while holding individuals accountable and not enabling them. This is a problem that with courage and conviction can be eliminated. We must curb the defeatist attitude that accepts this problem as never ending. If you are not strict with holding individuals accountable to these new ordinances, then the inevitable negative impact to our residents and businesses will grow and destroy our quality of life. We will all be impacted by your decisions. We wish for a safe, secure, and clean environment. Enforcement of these ordinances are paramount from day one of implementation. Otherwise, individuals will learn quickly that no accountability will be brought and no teeth will be within your ordinances. As a community, we will hold our city staff, council members, and law enforcement accountable to perform on enforcing and improving these ordinances as time and circumstance dictate. In my opinion and my reading of the law, we need to only provide one location. I'm proposing the police station parking lot. They should be monitored 24/7, and then the lack of comfort will diminish the population. If you choose another area, it will just have just as much impact as it would downtown. We will just be pushing off the impact to other areas outside of downtown. And my business is 1 block from the area I'm proposing, so it would be an impact on me as well. We need to make it as difficult as possible to camp, and then and only then work towards aid in recovery. All other laws, ordinances not limited to trespassing, littering, urination, defecation, vagrancy, theft, violence, loitering, all need to be enforced, along with these new ordinances. Stayton is not in a fiscal state to grow this problem excuse me, in our community. Salem has foolishly spent over $20 million last fiscal year on this issue with little success, and has implemented more taxes to continue their errors. If you choose to make it easy and comfortable for these individuals to camp and remain in their current state, or choose to aid in bringing in services, human nature will kick in and you will overwhelm this community and create harm. I have worked directly with the homeless and have worked the other end of cleanup after the environmental disaster. Any misguided compassion will destroy the quality of life for all of us. Keep our children and our community safe and our environment clean. Thank you for your time and service to our town.
Thank you, Chris. Aaron Frichtel. Where's Aaron? There he is.
My name is Aaron Frichtel, reside at 12326 Gulf Lane, Southeast Sublimity, Oregon. I'm adjacent to one of the proposed sites for the homeless camp. I'm speaking as a private individual tonight, not as RDS. And as we've heard testimony from my wife and from other people too, opening a doorway is going to be a floodgate of people coming into our town to take advantage of services provided. We don't need to provide services for people that don't pay taxes, that don't care, that steal from our citizens and spread disease with defecating and drug paraphernalia left behind. I'm concerned as a homeowner. I'm concerned as somebody who also sees the impact that negative actions can bring to a downtown core. I'm speaking with my service with RDS. It's going to spread to the entire community. It's not going to be located primarily in those areas. And once our town is noted for providing this open door and open permissiveness, it's going to bring a lot of people in for that, and you're going to see a flood of people that want to leave our town. And I'm concerned about that. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of illegal activity, and I think that the idea of putting it in the police department parking lot is a great one. I have the building right on that parking lot. I'm concerned. I think that we don't have the manpower to police it. We don't have the mental health professionals to monitor it or provide services to these people, and these people need it. They don't care. They purely don't care. They aren't interested in holding jobs. They aren't interested in providing anything to our community. And I think it's a wonderful thing if they have some sort of option for giving back to the community, but I have yet to hear anything that promotes that. And Stayton might be able to enact something where that's part of the plan for any type of proposed camping area, that you have to police it, you have to clean it up, you have to do something for the community. And I don't know the legal ramifications for that. I don't know what would need to be put in place for that to be a stipulation for residency in such camp. But that is something that I think that should be explored. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm pretty sure it says Corey. Corey, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so Sully.
Reinvolt?
There you go.
My name is Corey Reinvolt. I live at 41241 Manitou Road, Southeast, Stayton, Oregon. My wife and kids and I have been here almost 3 years now, but I grew up nearby and spent a lot of time in the area. Impressions of being younger is part of the reason why I moved my family out here. I also have the, I guess you could say, pleasure of working for the state on a highway maintenance crew in Salem. I drew the short straw. I'm the one that coordinates and oversees all the camp cleanups. Just the Salem maintenance crew in the last 2 years has spent somewhere just south of $2 million on cleanups, and we don't pay disposal fees. That's granted by the burner up in Brooks for free. And it's just a growing problem. I'm sure everybody here's been through Salem, they know it. It's the same group of people. We move around every about 3 weeks is when we make it through an area. I think the hardest part about approaching this sort of problem is the fact that from a higher level it's approached as though you're dealing with law-abiding citizens that will actually follow rules. On a daily basis, I walk through camps with a state trooper and see people smoking meth, shooting up in front of the troopers. There's no consequences. They don't, there's no deterrent. They don't care. We throw away tents, sleeping bags, stuff like that. They go down to Arches, get a new one, and you see them camped along the highway 2 hours later. My brother's a firefighter in the city of Portland. They're even worse up there. Granted, I know both Salem and Portland are much larger areas than Stayton, but it's all got to start somewhere. I run into a lot of homeless people from Kentucky, Tennessee, Nebraska, Texas, and the common denominator when you ask them why they came to Oregon is they got out of jail or they got in some sort of trouble and they got a bus ticket. And they heard that Oregon, Washington, and California are great places to be homeless, so they came here. We have equipment stolen from the state while we're on cleanups. We have chains, binders, shovels, all kinds of stuff stolen out of trucks. One of my contractors actually was assaulted today under the Marion Street Bridge while we were cleaning up over a bag of pop cans. I understand there's a law in place that there have to be accommodations made for them. I don't know that designating a certain area is necessarily the right approach, just because, like I said, most of them are this way because they wish to be this way and they wish to be outside of society. So this ordinance may help the ones that are down on their luck and want help, but the majority is going to take a different approach. That's all I have.
Thanks, Corey. Deb, are you wanting to say something? Deb Glander, are you wanting to?
My name is Deb Glander, and I live at 413 North 5th Avenue, and I'm a lifelong resident of Stayton, so I'm pretty proud of our community. I appreciate the input. Those are really good input of what people have spoken tonight. I attended the task force meeting, and I'm a little discouraged that things hadn't moved along and that they didn't look into the city of Sublimity. What are they doing for their ordinance? I know that we had some from Almsville and Turner and different places. I understand that these people are homeless, and like they said, some are by choice, some are not, and that there are services that evidently they can get, and that would be another point that they're going to do here. We're going to provide services. I'm concerned about the cost and the cleanup. I just hope that you keep that in mind, and the aspect of you have 8 properties you're considering. I hope you whittle it down to 1 would be great, because the police force and the city can't take care of so many and still protect us as a community and taxpayers. So just hope you keep that in mind. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. All right, so I have 2 more, but I think these are for the teen center ordinance. Is there? Okay, Katrina, come on up.
Hi guys, I'm Katrina Casas, Executive Director, Sandium Teen Center, representing 2800 Kendall Way, Stayton, Oregon. I wanted to talk on both Ordinance 1063 and 1068. I know that 1063 we talked about last month. I didn't speak because I think you had a lot of people already speaking, but I just wanted to, hopefully last month we kind of already came up with a decision and we're just going to follow up with that, but I still wanted to get my 2 cents in. So first and foremost, I want Mill Creek Park protected, which is something I know it's going to be talked about, correct? So that's a big reason why I'm here. Second, I know that it was also talked about, let's not comply. Let's not have any safety spot for them. And I like that idea too, as long as Mill Creek Park is protected. So here's why I don't like any place to be for the a camping place. I'm a firm believer as a parent. I've been a parent educator. I now run a teen center. I have my own kids. I'm a firm believer in time in and not time out. And if you give them a space of their own, it's putting them in time out, and nobody's going to monitor them. They're just going to take over. Whereas when you do time in, they are monitored and they're less likely to, I mean, you make the wrong thing uncomfortable when they're always monitored. So, I mean, if you give them a safe space, their own camping zone, then you're giving them a place that they can do whatever they want. And yeah, sure, there's going to be cops there, but we don't have the resources to really monitor that. So that's all I have, I think, for 1063. 1068 is our lease. I think we pretty much had that finalized after a long period of time. And I just want to say that I know that there were some questions on what we use the building for. And I'm hoping that we can use it for other purposes, but that they'll all be youth-related purposes. We want to be able to partner and collaborate with other youth organizations, whether it's homeschool co-ops, Young Life, different youth organizations being able to use it for board meetings, as long as it's all youth-related, and that way we can keep the teen center like what it is, and a youth center, and be able to center around that. So hopefully that can be what we talk about when we talk about the lease.
Good. Thanks. Denise? No? I'm good. Okay, thank you. All right, last opportunity for anyone to... What's that? She got it all. Awesome. Last opportunity for anybody to want to offer some comments either on one of those ordinances, because we're going to get on it right now. Okay? Thank you. With that, let's talk about the consent agenda, please. Council?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
It's been moved and there's a second?
Second, sure.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. No presentations tonight, Julia? Okay. So general business, let's start with ordinance 1063. Amendments to municipal code related to camping in compliance with ORS 195-530, second reading. Staff report with Julia.
Yes, and we have a PowerPoint presentation just to kind of, mainly so the audience can see some maps. Just want to remind you in your packet, this is discussed on pages 9 through 27, and probably the easiest way to see the proposed changes is in the track changes version. Anything proposed new is underlined, anything proposed deleted is strike through. And I'll do a next slide thing. So just as a reminder, we're here talking about this because there's both been case law at the Ninth Circuit Court, but also codified in state law. So it's not just state law, there's also Ninth Circuit Court legislation or rulings that are guiding this, what we're talking about. ORS 195.530 codifies essentially the case law. And up until now, we basically, in order to comply with the rulings of the court, we have not been enforcing our camping ordinance. So I just want to make that that clear, and pretty much no communities in on the West Coast have. ORS 195.530 basically says any city or county law that regulates the act of sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property that's open to the public must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, manner with regards to persons experiencing homelessness. We refer to that as camping. It's easy to say camping rather than to say sitting, lying, sleeping, keeping warm and dry, but that's what we're meaning when we say camping. And basically what that means is that we can regulate camping on public property, but the regulation must be reasonable so that it can't be prohibited everywhere in the entire city or state or wherever. The law goes further and says it's an affirmative defense to a charge of violating a city or county law described that the law is not objectively reasonable, which basically means if we don't amend our code to remove the provision that prohibits camping, someone can actually sue us not for enforcing it or not enforcing it, but just for having it on the books. The law also states that reasonableness shall be determined based on the totality of the circumstances, including but not limited to the impact of the law on persons experiencing homelessness. And that's why we look at how much space is there. We may be able to do just one location if that location is properly sized to accommodate the existing and anticipated homeless population, but that's what you take into account. Salem can't, they've got too big of a homeless population, right? We have about 10 to 13 people that are in our point in time count, so we potentially could have a smaller or narrower number of spaces. A person experiencing homelessness may sue, I'm rewording this, but may sue as to the reasonableness of the law. And then there is a provision that says if they give us 90 days notice, then they can recover attorney fees and plaintiff costs. They don't have to give us 90 days notice. They can sue us, but they don't necessarily get that money back. And I know last time there was a lot of discussion about the 90 days. They don't have to give us 90 days notice, but if they don't give us 90 days notice, then they can't come back and claim and ask for attorney's fees and those types of things. Next slide. So a summary of what is in front of you this evening. The proposed code amendments will amend Municipal Code 8.12 to define developed parks and public facilities. It amends the section prohibiting camping in developed parks and public facilities. And so basically right now, it just says you can't camp anywhere on any public property. That's the part of the code that is not consistent with court rulings or state law. What we're proposing to do is say we're going to define developed parks and prohibit camping in developed parks and prohibit camping on or in public facilities, but it's not an outright ban on all publicly owned property. And then within developed parks, you could potentially get a permit to camp, but that would be something like a Relay for Life or the Eclipse. You know, there could be some event that someone could ask for a permit, and that would be subject to a different process. By default, that means camping is allowed on other city property within the city boundaries. At the June 19th council meeting, you amended the definition of developed park to include the entirety of Mill Creek Park and Riverfront Park, leaving the other parcels still available. I will note, it was pointed out to me that in our definition, we do not specify Neatling Park, which is adjacent to Pioneer Park. It was mapped as part of Pioneer Park, so that must be why it was left off. So we would recommend that you make an amendment to make that clear. Council approved the proposed changes, but not unanimously. Therefore, that's why you're having the second reading. And just a note that generally my understanding is that with a second reading, you can make amendments. You will need to read them aloud for the public as well as the council, but it's not recommended that they be like wholesale changes to the concepts, but you can make amendments to the ordinance if you so choose. The next few slides I'm pointing out mainly just to remind and reorient everybody. Originally, what was being considered by council would have left the red circled areas off of the definition of developed park. If you want to go through the next two slides, that's just a closer up. And then what you, with your action at the last meeting, did was including the entirety of the Riverfront Park and the Mill Creek Park. You're essentially saying that all of those are developed parks. That map is also identifying the public facilities that are included, with the exception of rights-of-way, which are also included in the definition of public facility. That map would be pretty unreadable if we included all of the public rights-of-way, but public rights-of-way are also included in public facility. So by adopting this ordinance, you're essentially saying no camping on public right-of-way, no camping in public parks, and no camping in public facilities, which is what I just said in my next slide. Go ahead, sorry. So what will these amendments do and not do? I said previously that currently, because of the legislation and case law, the city, and again, all cities really, have not been able to enforce their camping regulations on public property. These amendments will allow you to enforce them on the places that we're saying you cannot camp, because we are acknowledging that there are some locations in the city that are available. We would continue and actually, I believe, better be able to enforce other regulations that are on the books. I think if we have a smaller area within which it is acceptable to be, it will be easier for us to regulate the noise, damage, property damage, fires, alcohol, scattering rubbish, and those types of provisions that are on the books and we can continue to enforce. So our recommendation is to adopt Ordinance 1063, and again, reminding the council as well as the public that the task force will continue to meet to seek input and tweak and modify as necessary as we go forward. And I will just make a plug. This isn't really a staff report, but we do have an interested parties list that I am putting out information about task force meetings as well as public involvement, public opportunities as they come up. If anybody, I realized that our sign-up sheets don't include emails, so after the last meeting, I had hoped to get a lot of people, but I didn't. The emails weren't on there. So if people would like to be added to the interested parties list and are not already, I'll leave a piece of paper up so people can write their email or they can email me directly. I think with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or clarification. And Ross, our city attorney, is also online via Zoom.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Before we go to council, I'm going to give it one more shot with public comment. Anyone have any addition? Come on. Ms. Frechtel, go ahead. Come on.
Okay, so I had a question of clarification. So the map that you showed in this proposal for them, the areas that they would be allowed to camp were identified in those red circles? Or was it just, we will find a place, if it's like the police department parking lot, we will find a place that they can be, but it's not what you listed in those red circles?
I'm just generally public comment.
Yeah, I want to see. Can you put the map up again, Julia, and we'll answer that.
Yeah. And in short answer, no, it is not within those red circles.
Correct.
It was originally within those red circles, but the council action at the last meeting made those red circles go away.
Right.
So
Okay, so where then is it legal for them to be? It's just not clear from this.
and it's a little intentional. I don't know that we want to advertise all the places where they will be allowed to be, because we want them to.
Yeah, the totality of what's left as in public property is like 1.6, 1.8 acres. It's really nothing. It's parcels here and there throughout the city. So it's really, we don't want to have it on a map per se, because it's.
Well, what about for us? Like, we don't know. If I see somebody and they're causing a problem here on this property, how do I know that this isn't a legal place?
It's shown on the map. So can you go to the that map? These are the places where they cannot be.
The green and the red?
And the red.
Correct.
As well as any right-of-way, as well as your private property. They cannot be in any of those locations.
It is. Okay.
That map, we are absolutely, that can be very, very readily available. And we will have to talk amongst ourselves and the task force about how we share where those locations can be. But we can tell you definitively that any of those red or green areas, as well as all public right-of-way, with this ordinance being passed, that we would not allow camping, sleeping, lying.
So that 1 acre hasn't been identified. It's not, the locations are not being voted on right now. It's.
Correct.
It's that they're.
It's still public.
Those places they can't.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. Correct.
Okay, and can I just ask for clarification if this strip here is okay for their camping? No?
That area is part of a city facility, and therefore it would not be okay for camping.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
While investigating various aspects of this ruling and everything.
Can you state your name and address,
Oh,
please?
okay. I'm Dan Morgan, reside at 1695 Cardinal Avenue here in Stayton.
Yep.
And in my investigation on some of this information, I disclosed something that I don't think anyone has addressed yet, and that is that these campers can have fires anytime they want to have fires. 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't matter, because they call them cooking fires. So consequently, you call the fire department comes out to put out their campfire. No, they cannot do it. I've talked to different people in Salem, and I've talked to the actual fire marshal here in Stayton, and he actually agrees with that they will not be able to put out any fires in these campsites because they can call them cooking fires, and therefore they're exempt from any fire laws that maybe the state or city or whatever might put up. So I just wanted to make that aware. I mean, wanted the public to be aware that that also could be a problem, even in no matter what site you choose.
Thanks, Dan. We'll get clarification on that. We have an ordinance against fire, but let's see.
Hi, I'm Karen Kins, 741 Fox, Stayton, and I just need a little clarification. I was at the June 19th meeting, and I was under the impression that Wildlife Meadows Park was also, and I didn't see that up on the slide. It was also brought into the category of developed parks.
It's spelled out here in the ordinance. It's one of
Okay,
the.
it wasn't up there,
it's-
so I
okay.
just wanted to
Yep,
clarify.
it's spelled out in here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead. Aaron, go ahead.
Aaron Frichtel again. I just wanted to clarify, the areas that are counted as city, do those include the school properties as well, or?
No, that was
No?
a different, it's a government agency, entity, but it's different from our city ordinance.
Okay, so they could theoretically be camping on school property?
I can't speak on that. That's up to the school board and the school district to speak, but I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
I think I can
Go ahead.
try to answer that. So I think that as another governmental agency, they can regulate and say, we are not going to allow that on our property, and we would, I'm sure, support that. They're not, the issue is the totality of the availability, and so if we, I mean, this isn't what's going to happen, but if we had no property anywhere, then there might be an issue. But because we are saying there is some property that can accommodate people that need to sit, sleep, lie down, stay warm and dry, the school district doesn't have an obligation to provide an equal amount or anything more than what we're already doing. So they should and likely already do have things on their books regarding camping.
Okay, so that wouldn't be, just to clarify, the school properties wouldn't be public property, even though they're treated as such by community members.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
We don't regulate what the
Right.
school district does with their
Correct.
Okay.
property, other than zoning. You know.
Right. I live behind the Stayton Middle School, so that obviously is a big tract of forest area, which can go up like a tinderbox very quickly. And the previous man that talked about cooking fires, I have a great concern for that. I think that could very easily spread. And I invite everybody to look outside this door right here and see what a homeless person did right outside this door. Tried to burn this community center down. So, I mean, this is really important, people. You can look right outside that door. So it's intentional, and if somebody's unhappy, they cause violence, and that's what we have to look forward to wherever it's chosen. But I do have concern for proposed areas. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to move on with council discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, this is just a question for Julia. So, and I think it's just a point of clarification on the last question that was brought. I do think it's important that we're, while we're not directing individuals to particular, like making it very clear what's available publicly in terms of like for homeless individuals, I do think it's important that we are transparent in our conversation and discussions around what properties are available. And I know in our task force meeting, we did include those pictures of the properties that are available, the different parcels of land that are available for homeless camping, and I think that's definitely a very important part of this discussion. Is I think that is actually a key part of what we're going to decide tonight is what locations are available, and I believe there's about 7 to 8 different parcels, and they are kind of scattered throughout, varying sizes, and most of them are in residential zones. And so I had a concern about that last meeting, and that's still my primary concern going into this discussion, is trying to find a more suitable parcel. So I do want to make sure that is definitely a part of this conversation, as we're making sure that we're finding the solution that's going to best suit our city. I am too very, very glad, very happy. I am encouraged that we are protecting our parks, and I think that's a good thing, and I'm 100% for that. I don't think that parks are the solution. I also think likewise that residential areas aren't the solution either. So I want to, as we move through this and work through potentially some proposed amendments that can help strengthen our proposal tonight, I do think it's important that we're transparent kind of through the process as well.
Councilor Patty.
Thank you. Julia, is the chief on tonight?
She's in the back of the room. hiding
Sorry,
from
I can't see. You're too short back there. Gwen, would you come up here real quick? I have a couple questions for you, just as far as enforcement goes, if I may, just to better understand this. Thank you. Okay. Chief, I'm just kind of curious, if we pass what we have right in front of us today with the addition of Needling Park, and then your officers contacted somebody in the park and they were essentially told, hey, you're not allowed to camp here. The person, what would happen then? Would they be arrested for being camping in the park, or would you take them and then drop them off at one of these 8 locations throughout town? What would that look like?
So there does need to be some in-house discussion about how we move forward, what the phase 2 portion is. But if someone is where they're not supposed to be, generally we need to start with letting them know they're not supposed to be there. So this would be a change in policy from what has happened. So most usually we're going to try to work for compliance, and if they're willing to leave, we've solved that problem. If it's an issue where they're not compliant, or that's a repeat, right, then if it's a place they're not supposed to be, that's a trespass, and we would take appropriate enforcement action with that. As with everything, behavior is something that we focus on. So if there's behavior that's unlawful or against ordinance, we address that as well. Again, we're dealing with courts, so it's what we can prove in court, not what we think happened, but what factually we can prove happened. But we're going to look to work to solve that. No, we don't want to displace a problem, but if they have a safe alternative option of where they'd want to stay and it's lawful, we would assist in that.
I would imagine, given the choice between your parking lot at the police station and services in Salem, they would probably choose the latter. So here's my fear, and I think this is getting at what Councilor Giglio is fearful of. Us shoehorning these folks into residential areas when we find them in the parks. Is that what would happen as a result of any code we
Well,
pass tonight?
Right. I can't say, but what I can say is, like Julia has represented, if we don't have options, that hinders us from being able to enforce, right? So we have to provide options. It's not a, do we want to? Well, clearly, you know, there's plenty of people that don't want to, but that's not an option. So the option is we need to. And if we want to enforce that they're not sleeping in Pioneer Park, they're not sleeping in these other areas, there has to be an option. So, you know, we have our current of, if they're in these places, we address the behavior, we post camps and follow that particular, you know, action of what we're allowed to right now. But again, too, the addressing, we've got 10 to 12 homeless people from time to time that we're having to address where they're at.
And can I add, I think the hope is that, the current available sites are primarily in residential areas. They're not 100% in residential areas. But I think the hope, and Chief Johns is right, that we need to have a more robust internal dialogue as well. But the hope is that with these properties, if they are chosen to be used, that they're not going to become tent villages where people establish and set roots. There's still going to be, that it's where they can sit, sleep, lie down, stay safe, stay warm and dry. It doesn't mean that they can have garbage and build structures and those types of things. And so that's going to be something that if there aren't any additional modifications made this evening, that's still something that we would do internally to kind of have a plan of, okay, how often are we going to these sites and seeing what's there and making sure that they're clean. I'm sure that we will hear about it from people in those areas, you know, if that is a place where they choose to locate.
Right, and like Julia is saying, it's not that we're building tiny homes there, we're not setting up camp cities, it's an opportunity where they can lie, sit,
and not be shooed
get
away
rest.
for
For a period of time. It's not a long-term established, they still can't establish a long-term camp there.
Right. And so, given some of the testimony we've heard tonight, do you think the police parking lot is a suitable location as a primary place for these people?
I understand what some of the perspectives are, that it would be supervised. Operationally, I mean, it's where we store our fleet, and when we bring custodies through, you know, we'd have to look at it operationally to see how it could be managed, but currently that's where we store our fleet. There isn't an extra space there. We've got public that drives through and uses it for the parking for the movie theater in downtown. We've got trash trucks that drive through and need to operationally get through there. So logistically, I don't know where the space would be that we're providing them that meets a standard of enough space. So we would have to change operationally some things.
Got it. Thank you. That's what I needed, basically, to hear that from you. I have an alternative, but that's all I needed from you, Chief. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Julia.
Chief Johnson, do you mind if I just ask a quick question as well? Sorry. Yes, okay. So let's say we added an alternative location that we were able to add. Is it possible for us to set in policy, all right, if someone is directed to an alternative location, that they would be, that location would be prioritized in terms of a location to be sent to, as opposed to, so let's say even technically there are a few other parcels that are available. Are we able to set through policy? Yes. When there is an alternative given, it is this parcel that's given, or one of two parcels that are given.
I can answer that. I mean, I think that, again, we would discuss, but I think if there was a preferred location that was more more suitable, I guess, less likely to be disruptive to the neighbors. I think that that would be probably something that we would, you know, if we were to say, hey, you can't be here, but here's a place you can be, I think you wouldn't have to necessarily say all the properties that you could potentially be on. You can just say, here's one that you could be on. Is that?
Sounds reasonable.
Counselor Sims.
So 1063, chapter 8.12, what I see as a first iteration I really like. It's preventing the camping in the developed park and on public facilities. And under the bridge, I think that was stated in here also. So I like that as a first iteration. I would like to take a deeper dive and look into, you know, with the city attorney and the rest of the counselors about daytime camping and banning that. I think that might be a way to go to prevent any permanent campsites. Because once we have permanent campsites, you're talking cleanups and hazmat and a big expense to the city, as we've had testimony, and I have some firsthand experience there myself. But I do like what we have right now, with the exception of adding Neatling Park. I think we need to do that. And as far as sites, talking about some sites to use, I think we need to keep away from residential areas. I mean, I saw a couple sites that I would like to look at a little more closely. One was Wilco Road. We had a plot out there that was away from any residential housing, and in front of the water plant I thought might be a good solution if we were actually to designate any sites. But those were two that I saw that interest me, and I would like to have a little more discussion about those.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I would definitely agree on the Wilco Road one is, and I think it's definitely, and I would also agree, I think, on the daytime camping as well. I think those are two solutions I'd really like to consider. One question I had would just be for the lawyer, Ross, who's here. I did send over, just in the run-up to this meeting, I was testing just a few proposed amendments on how we would add a daytime camping ban or a 24-hour ban. I did get back some language on that. And I just wanted to ask you, Ross, so is having some sort of time limit on camping like this, is that, and I did see it in a number of other city ordinances that were passed, is that something that you feel is reasonable?
Good evening, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. To answer the question, it is very common. What we're seeing right now across the state are either a number of days in ordinances or sometimes hours. And that is a very common provision. In my mind, I believe that is objectively reasonable, but we will hear from the court. On July 1st, the city of Portland was sued, and that was one of the big issues in that lawsuit, is that Portland is placing an overnight or a daytime ban on camping where it's allowed. So I think we will, as the lawsuit runs its course through the court system, we'll have a firmer answer on that question. But I think there is a very solid argument that it is reasonable.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty.
Thank you. Hey, Ross, while we got you on there, are there any other challenges for any other aspects of other municipalities' codes that we should be aware of at this time?
No, none that I'm aware of right this moment. But I think these will be, they'll start to come. The city of Bend was sued on Friday, but that was mostly related to I think today and tomorrow they were cleaning up one of their bigger camps and they're forcing folks to move. And so there was a lawsuit filed on Friday to try to stop that. So that wasn't directly tied to their ordinance, but it's probably bound to come shortly.
Thank you. I just wanted to go ahead and also throw out another couple of alternatives here. While the daytime camping ban is interesting to me, I kind of worry about that for various legal reasons. That's just my own opinion. But the 24-hour idea of moving them along after a day, that interests me personally, and I think that might be worthy of some discussion here.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think both have merit and both seem to have kind of their own pros and cons that we'd want to work through. I personally feel that just given the response from our lawyer, and given I think the targets on Portland already working through this daytime ban, that I think it's an acceptable risk to definitely take as a city. So I would definitely think that as we're making this call, I wouldn't necessarily put like the legal ramifications around daytime or the 24 hours as the main concern. I think for me it's just the question of what's going to work best as a deterrent to any type of established camping, because I think that's the goal. The goal is that we want to prevent all types of established camping, any type of buildup in trash, any type of things that someone is camping at. And I think if we don't have more than one suitable location, it's going to be difficult to have a 24-hour ban, because if you have a 24-hour ban, you need to move them along after 24 hours, and so you have to move them somewhere. And so if the question is, so if we have more than one suitable site, then I think that's an acceptable answer, and maybe there's even a combination of both. It's 24 hours and it's daytime. But I think if we have just one, then I think that the daytime seems like it's the option that I'd be comfortable moving forward with.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion just to amend Ordinance 1063 as considered to include Needling Park in the developed park definitions.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to add Neatling Park as a developed park into the ordinance. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Continue, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Go ahead.
Sorry to put him on the spot. Councilor McDonald, haven't heard a lot from you on this.
Well, the couple of questions I had were asked and answered by the other councilors, so I'm pretty clear. I did miss the last meeting, but I go back and watch the entire 3 hours, so I'm up to date on the issues. As far as daytime or length of stay parameters, I don't think I'm entirely against those. What I am a little bit worried about is the enforcement burden on the police force in that case. Who's starting the timer? Who's going by to check in 24 hours? What I'd really like to see, I think, is that we proceed with the ordinance as is, kind of see how it goes, see what the result is. If the hope is, right, that these restrictions are enough to get these people to move along, maybe to another city, another town, somewhere else, and then we don't have to take any additional steps. That would be the ideal situation. I think we got to give that a chance to happen. So, like I said, well, I'm not entirely opposed to those restrictions. I think both from an enforcement perspective and a legal exposure perspective, I think we would be I think it'd be a little bit smarter to wait on those for now, and kind of see how it goes. But mostly because of our current population is relatively small, our homeless population is relatively small. We should be able to keep track of the movements, and then I'm just super tense about adding too much burden on the police force. So that's it.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor Gillo.
While I do favor the daytime restrictions, and I also do understand, I think that there is going to be some enforcement challenges. I think where I would bend is to say, I would like this to be, while I understand, I do appreciate this, I think what Councilor McDonald says, I think this is true, like we do really want to see what the impacts of this are, and we do also want to consider this a first step. Like I do think that there is going to be, we really are going to need to revisit this very quickly and make sure that we are accomplishing our goals. I think my position on it is just that I would like it to be as strong as it can be within that parameters. And I think given the advice of the lawyer, I feel that at least if we were to start with a 24, like while I favor a daytime ban, I think a 24-hour ban is still better than no time restrictions. So I would just say that. So if we're not at the daytime ban, if we don't have consensus on the daytime ban, if we can at least get to the 24 hours, I would favor that over nothing at this point, just because I think that that's the strongest deterrent we have. And I think when we were at the task force meeting, almost every example of a city that was shown had either some sort of hourly ban or a daytime ban in every example that was shown. So I think it's a risk that we're taking with almost every other city in the state. So that would be my thought on it.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Councilor Giglio, do you got some language for a motion over there?
Well, I don't know which one to go with. We'll do the one. Let's debate them. Let's debate through them. Let's start with the one that I'm in favor of, and then if that gets shot down, we can move on to the the second one. All right, let me pull this up. It's actually very specific. Yes. All right. So I would make a motion to accept as authorized by, sorry, hold on, we got. All right. I don't exactly, okay, I think, so I make a motion to amend subsection 10 in 8.12.040 to state that except as authorized by 8.12.020, where camping is prohibited, no person shall camp between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm open to adjusting those exact hours as well.
Looks like there's not a second. Is there a second? Councilor Giglio, sorry about that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to whatever it was. You can read that back to me. Basically regulating the hours.
Yeah, so it's
regulating the hours of camping prohibited between 8
to 8 a.m.
to 8 p.m.
To 8 p.m.
Okay, further discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor.
I think I stated my opinion just to reiterate. I don't think it's the right time for these kind of restrictions. And again, I worry about the administrative and enforcement burden on the police force. So I'll be a no on that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims.
I do think that addition would strengthen our code and give the police chief the ability to make people pick up their campsites. I think it would really help from preventing any permanent sites being set up. That's where you get the real cost. As we start getting these campsites, we'll have hazmat and needle pickups, and we'll have to have a hazmat team out here cleaning them up. So that's really what I want to try to prevent.
Sure. Councilor Patty.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm kind of with Ben on this. I want to see what this looks like first. I'm just kind of in favor of 24-hour ban. But also with this, I want to see whether or not this is implementable. As a city councilor, we're up here, we're passing code, and that's supposed to be executed by city staff. And if we're passing code up here and our police force can't enforce it, what are we really doing? So I think I'm going to go ahead and vote a yes on this because I want to see what can be done with it. But I definitely have some concerns as far as enforcement goes, and I hope to see those rectified and this issue re-elevated back to us if we need to modify it and this is not enforceable, because there's no reason to have it on the books if it's not being enforced.
Mr. Mayor, can I just
Sure, go ahead.
comment on that? So if that motion is passed, and I really appreciate what Councilor Patty said, this is still being discussed by the task force. It will be continued to discussed, and I think there will be opportunities for tweaking as needed. So I think that would happen.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
I
McDonald.
just want to make one other point, and that is conceptually, if we have a daytime camping ban, what do we expect the people are going to do during the daytime hours? If they're forced to pick up their stuff, I mean, they're not going to walk to Salem. They're going to be wandering around town, potentially, soliciting in front of businesses, wandering around residential areas. They got to be, I guess, on their feet, moving around. I don't know if people are really going to like that result either. Now, I get there's kind of a lesser of two evils thought here, but I think it's going to make, these people kind of, I guess I just am not real clear on what the actual result of that is, and I don't think it's really going to be what is intended. They're going to pick up and wander around town for 12 hours and then set back down again. I don't think that's really what we want to see.
My thought is that on the 24-hour piece, it's not where they're going to be there at 23 hours and 59 minutes. It's going to be where the officer recognizes that person being there for an extended point in time. My concern is that it's going to be adjudicated shortly because now it's in court with Portland ordinance. And so if that gets adjudicated one way or the other, it could be coming back for us to remove it from our code at that point. And to Councilor McDonald's point, yeah, what are we going to do with those folks? Where are they going to go? They're going to be in town now, as opposed to being at the facility where we know nothing's going on. Now they're going to be wandering around in the community more. So this is my point, but.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I definitely think that the point that Councilor McDonald brought up is the largest con, right? It is definitely the biggest area of concern that I have with having a daytime camping ban. I think that in general, though, as I've been thinking it through, has just been that what it prevents is that established camping. It's a very clear, it makes it very clear, like it provides really clear standards for enforcement. And I also think that there's an assumption that if we don't have a camping ban, that people are going to just stay at that camp anyway, which is not true. You can still move throughout the city if you're homeless. You can still wander, go to parks. The assumption that if this isn't in place, someone's just going to stay in that campsite all day. I think that that's also kind of is a little bit of a stretch as well. So I think in general, people can go and move as they like throughout the city during the day. But I think what we're saying is, how do we prevent, as we're looking at the worst, like the better of two bad options, what's going to provide the biggest de-incentive and really be able to knit long-term camping in the bud as we move forward.
Councilor Sims.
So if we do a daytime camping ban, I do believe it's going to be a huge inconvenience for anybody in the area, and I do believe it'll drive some of the homeless folks out of Stayton, and it's just going to be so inconvenient. They're going to have to pack their stuff around. They might hang out during the daytime in the parks and stuff, but I do believe this will make it painful to stay in Stayton, and it'll drive folks out.
well, there's a motion on the table in a second. Discussion further? All right, with that, Tammy, I guess we'll poll the council.
Counselor Gilio,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald,
No.
Counselor Sims.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay. Continue the discussion. So that's an amendment to the ordinance. Let's continue.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we have any other modifications we want to do we?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Giglio.
I think the one thing that I would like to add or consider adding is a more suitable place, because right now we don't have the Wilco Road on there, and so if we could just basically have maybe just a discussion if we feel like maybe before we even go to an amendment, feel like if the Wilco Road is a suitable location, or if there are any other suitable location ideas that we wanna bring out. But I think at least having one that we feel comfortable having people at
Okay.
would be good.
Who wants to start the discussion? Yourself? Who wants to start this discussion about Wilco Road? Anybody?
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Sims?
I saw the PowerPoint presentation of that plot. I really would like to go see this area before I go too far in depth and being an advocate for Wilco Road. I think that would be the right area away from residences. And also the water plant's another spot I like, but right in front of
Okay.
there, there's a grassy area with some rocks in front of there, but
Okay.
I don't know how large that, I mean, I just looked at the PowerPoint presentation. I haven't gone out and looked at Wilco Road and, what businesses are around it and how
Okay.
big it is.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
so I did have the opportunity to go take a look at it. It's definitely not adjacent, like immediately adjacent to any major business operations. I think it's adjacent to the bus yard there, and it is on the edge of, I think, the farmer's field. It is a field that's for sale. It does seem like there might be a little bit of assumption that not all that right away, like because it's a right away, so they've been using a little of that right away. But I think there definitely would be enough space for it's a pretty large-ish plot of land from what I can remember, and in reference to the water treatment plant, like I'm also open to that as well. I do know there are more concerns around just our water supply and if there's contamination in there and stuff. So, yeah, I don't really necessarily. I just feel like right now passing it as is, knowing that really the primary places are all in residential zones, even if this is not where we end up landing, at least having something that we feel a little bit better about than a residential zone is what I would like to end up on. So.
Okay. So, Julia, if the ordinance is passed tonight, we still have 30 days before it's enacted, correct?
That's correct.
So we'd have
Or before it takes
another month for us to keep diving into this and look at the alternative locations. So is that
Well, I mean, once it's passed, it will become
correct?
effective 30
Correct.
days, yes.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty.
To be honest with you, Councilor Giglio, I kind of want to see this code implemented and see what this looks like before we start identifying the sites. And I'm with you. I'm very cautious of this. And believe you me, like this will be the priority if we start seeing camps and residences. But at this point, I feel like we should pass this and see what happens.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Just a question to Councilor Patty is, on a policy standpoint, though, is there any place that you feel that's currently listed? So if, as the police say, right, okay, we can't, like, hey, we're happy to give you right of services, or here's some list of services, you're not allowed to be here, and then as they're pressed on the issue, is there any place that's currently listed where you feel comfortable about someone being, because as I look at the list, I'm not necessarily comfortable with anyone being in the spots that are currently available. So is there one on the list that you'd feel more comfortable with, or I guess I just kind of want to understand a little bit more your thought process on.
Right. And so my thought process at this point is I want to see this code implemented, before I start identifying the sites personally. And I think that if we start really highlighting them on a slideshow again, and I don't think that's a good idea either. The other spot that I think is probably more ideal than anything, maybe not with Wilco Road, but spots in front of the wastewater treatment plant. That would be where I would want to put them. I just don't see anybody wanting to set up long-term there. I don't know if anybody's smelled the wastewater treatment plant, but it's not pleasant. So I think maybe there first, and then, yeah, that would be my priority. And I don't know if we need to line that out in code tonight. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Councilor Sims, go ahead.
I definitely agree with Councilor Patty on this. I would like to see this code implemented and then have some more discussion about these, several spots that we could designate, because I am very, very open to that. I do think we're going to need to do that at some point, but I think we need to get implementation of our code and so we can enforce it, and down the road we can do new iterations and maybe add several spots, because I'm definitely not opposed to that at all.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'm not opposed to what you're all saying. I definitely think that we need to continue to research and continue to gather information as to where the long-term places are. I think the only thing I'm arguing is that as an interim spot, the Wilco Road spot, even if we just have one spot, it's the Wilco Road, which it seems like there's a general openness to. That feels like a better interim spot as at least a place to potentially send someone than the current spaces, because I think that what's being said is that there's not a place that's identified. I just think that there are plots that are identified, and the plots that are identified, as I've seen them, are in places I'm not comfortable having even someone there overnight. Where at the Wilco Road, at least I would say, okay, there is during this interim, as we're seeing implementation, we at least have one spot we feel a little bit more comfortable as we're doing more research than the current residential zones.
So I'm wondering if I can say something that might help a little bit. So the question came up, like, if we're called and we're asked, they're not supposed to be here. It's not common practice that we say, well, here's where you can go, right? So if they're at Pioneer Park and they can't be at Pioneer Park, it's time to leave. You can't camp at Pioneer Park. So we are going to be working to enforce where they're not supposed to be. And yes, I get eventually the answer question might be, right? But I guess I look at too where we're at right now. We have one camp. I went out Friday, a team of us. We drove down Riverfront, we hiked, we went down to the river, we're on the dirt trails, and there's one tent down there that we located. And maybe we didn't dig far enough, but we have one tent. So I'm not sure our one tent is cause for the concern of where we're gonna tell them, we're not gonna tell them. The places they need to be, we're gonna say, you can't be here, right? So I don't know if that quells some of the concern. Same with the RV that was parked down there, right? We need to work within what our bounds are and the behavior, things that are against the law and against ordinance. And it was, the RV can't continue to be parked here, you need to find an alternative, and you need to move along. So I don't know if that helps with this conversation, but I'm hoping it might shed some light.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve ordinance 1063 with aforementioned modifications and amendments.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amended version of ordinance 1063, and I hope someone wrote it down over there so you can read it back to us. No?
So you made two motions that have already been approved. So
Okay.
one of the motions was adding Needling Park.
Got it, yeah.
And the other motion was, and you might have to,
The hours.
yeah, basically it was
As
adding,
amended.
It's to amend Yeah, amend subsection, sorry, actually, this would be a new subsection 10 in, yeah, it's it's to amend 8.12.040 with a new subsection 10 that states, except as authorized by 8.12.020, where camping is permitted, no person shall camp between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Okay, everyone good with that? So the motion by Councilor Patty was to, and there was a second by Councilor Giglio to pass the ordinance 1063 as amended. Is that correct? Okay. Any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Giglio.
I do think, I think the reason, I think that was pretty obvious, and I just want to be very clear, and I think it's really important that we just are very clear, and I think the reason I was supportive of that, and I voted for that, was definitely because of the answer we just received from Chief Johns. I think that's just very key, right? That we're not directing people to certain places. We are just saying you are not allowed to be here. You're not allowed to be here. And I think that's the biggest solution to this, is to absolutely, and I think that wasn't necessarily clear until this point, exactly what the policy would be, but I think with that policy clarified, I feel a lot more comfortable moving forward, especially knowing that we even have a daytime camping ban as kind of a backup. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clear as to why I was supporting that. But with that clarification, I feel comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. And this is the first step in a progress to try to address this issue. So again, I really appreciate all the public comments. I appreciate you all coming here. I appreciate the folks that turned up to the Homeless Task Force Committee. It makes a big difference, especially when we're sitting up here trying to address policy and reflect upon the issues that you folks want us to look at from your perspective. It really makes a big difference, so thank you. With that, we will move on to resolution number 1068, authorizing signing a lease for property at 2800 Kendall Way for use as the teen center. Staff report with Julia.
Yes, so what you have before you is a lease that, as you know, the teen center has been operating at the property on Mill Creek Park, or the former site of Mill Creek Park, 2800 Kendall Way Southeast. They've been operating a teen center there since 2018. The lease actually expired, but they're still in there. And we had a conversation with council several months ago about whether or not we wanted to renew the lease or not, because we ultimately will be developing the property. The direction from council was, yes, let's negotiate a lease, so that's what we did. The lease was actually drafted by our city attorney, and then discussions between staff and the teen center staff to kind of work through some of the questions and issues that had come up over the past several years, and so that's what is before you. You did receive a public comment about the uses clause, which I think Katrina spoke to a little bit, but I'll speak to as well. Under the current expired lease, there really was no provision for allowing them to use it for anything other than a teen center, but there was also no discussion about what they are using it for a teen center. Hours, they could be, open an hour a week for all we know. And so what we tried to do with this provision is clarify a little bit more what the expectation was for the operation of the teen center, but also acknowledge that having a vacant building sit idle for hours or days wasn't necessarily in the best interest of our property. And so we wanted to make the concession that they could use it for other things, but they still, because it's a city-owned building, we wanted to make sure that it was clear that they couldn't rent it to people that would be discriminatory. They also couldn't rent it for money. They're getting a very good deal on this lease, and so we wanted to make sure they weren't profiting off of that. And then also it can't, the rental of the site can't supersede what the purpose of the teen center was. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council has on that.
And Julie, I do have a couple of questions. So you said that wasn't in the previous lease agreement, this clause?
Not as specified, no, not the hours.
Yeah, so what does that entail? What piece of the property? The entire building itself, or is it in scope? What are we looking at? The entire park, or just?
So if you look at the back of the lease, there's an exhibit that shows the area that is within their lease, which is the entire building and an area around the building.
Okay. For me, it just seems a little broad in its scope. It's open to interpretation. I'm just wondering what kind of other uses will be included in that.
Yeah, and again, you can certainly direct some clarification. I think Katrina suggested some youth-oriented type of other uses, and that might work. The idea is, just like certain uses like churches might be primarily a church, but operate with other, clubs and organizations in it. The idea was it's primarily a teen center, but that doesn't mean it's has no other purpose, as opposed to, we don't want them to be a restaurant or a hotel. They can't sublease it for that. It's got to be related to that use. So, we certainly could discuss modifications. And I don't think we necessarily need to wordsmith it. It's not like the ordinance where you need to direct changes. It's the resolution is authorizing me to sign the lease. You could authorize me to sign the lease that's substantially similar with some additional clarification language if you wanted.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims?
Can I direct this at you, Julia? So if they were to hold a golf tournament and do a luncheon at the teen center, it's not for profit, but it's for raising funds. Would that prevent them from doing that?
No, they're not. No, that's a good question. But in my mind, that would be, they're not making money for the rental of the teen center space.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought, but I want to be sure.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I know they can't sublease it, right?
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Giulio.
I personally feel very comfortable with this language, especially given the fact that I think it's the subletting is prevented outside of approval from the city. I think that allowing it for similar uses, but preventing ability to make revenue off that, I think that's going to help prevent it from veering off course in terms of like the mission and using it wildly outside of like that term. So I personally feel pretty comfortable with the language that's here, but I'm open to.
Councilor Sims?
Yeah, looking through there, I am also pretty comfortable with the language in here.
Councilor McDonald?
I don't have any problems with the language. I think I'm good here. I don't have even any remote concerns about any ill use of the property. So I'm good with approving as is.
Okay. Councilor Decision?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Councilor Patty.
I just wanted to go ahead and say, nice job on this, Julia. Nice job, Ross, on drafting this. I was very surprised to hear that you hadn't seen the first one before this one. In addition to that, I just wanted to say anything that gives us the ability to better serve the youth of this community is badly needed. And Katrina, if you can do anything towards effectuating more of this, we're all for it. We're your partner.
Okay. Well, can we get a action?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giulio?
Yeah, let me find the right language real quick. Where is it? I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 1068.
Come on, man. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 1068, authorizing signing a lease for property at 2800 Kendall Way, Southeast, for use as a teen center. Any further discussion? Tammy, you pull the count. Never mind. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Counselor Patty, would you like to do the next agenda item?
I sure would. Well, hey all. As you may or may not know, Julia recently had her last evaluation, and afterwards did some negotiation, me and her, and you know, in discussing this and kind of what other employees receive throughout the organization, her and I both felt this was pretty appropriate. So given all that, I move to provide a 3% merit salary increase for the city manager effective July 1, 2023, and authorize the mayor to document this decision with the city manager.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to provide a 3% merit salary increase for the city manager effective July 1st, 2023, and authorize the mayor to document the decision with the city manager. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Update on Ida Street sewer capacity issues. Lance, you're up.
First off, I would like to applaud you guys for giving Julia a merit increase. It's well deserved. Anyway.
Wait a minute. What's the conflict again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This, as you know, there's been rumors out in the community that there's a moratorium on development in this community. Now, while that is not entirely true, there is a bit of truth to that, and tonight I'm hoping to clear some of that up for you. And before we get started with the slides, I want to have a brief couple of paragraphs that I want to read. Since the completion of the 21 wastewater facilities master plan, Public Works staff has known that we've had sewer capacity issues in the city, which would prevent development occurring. There were severe capacity issues in several of the sewer basins in the city, and the remedy for this is upsizing sewer pipes. This will be a multi-year project. Until these projects are complete, Public Works will be closely monitoring development proposals. Where am I at here? I'm losing my slide. Sorry, guys. There will be a controlled development in the city. Development projects will need to be looked at on an individual basis to see if we have enough capacity in the lines. Stayton Family Building Blocks came in several months ago and asked to be approved for a site plan. In looking at our master plan, the pipe outside in front of their project was undersized, so we had to put them on hold. This prompted myself, the city engineer, and Keller Associates to start running different development scenarios with development, development scenarios over the past month to try to determine how much development we can let occur, how big a development can it be, and where exactly can it be located. We think we have a pretty good understanding of the issues now, and I will try to walk you through that tonight. The first thing that you need to know is that Priority 1 project, the Priority 2.3 project, and the Priority 2.4 projects all need to be constructed prior to having maximum capacity in our sanitary sewer lines to allow development to occur without restrictions. In November 2021, the city hired AKS Engineering to design phase 1 of the Priority 1 capital improvement project. The design was completed and put out to bid in July 22. We did not receive any bids from contractors. We rebid that this last December and received several bids, and we awarded the project to Black Pearl Excavation. This project is currently being constructed and should be complete by October 2023. Phase 2 of the design and the construction is anticipated. Phase 2 of that design has begun, and the construction is anticipated to start spring 2022. And with that, we'll go through some slides that I prepared to kind of illustrate where we're at. I guess I'll look at my own. That's a little bit difficult for me. The last wastewater master plan was performed in 2006, and they assumed a 3.5 growth rate, 3.35% growth rate for the city of Stayton, way more than what we experienced. They showed a population in 2015 of 14,000, and we're still at 8,200. So you can see there was significant issues with their capital plan. Their capital plan went all the way to Highway 22 and showed significant projects being done in that time. And so in 2021, we had the master plan updated. I believe Councilor Patty, you sat on that group. And with that, we assumed a 0.75% growth rate. We estimate, which estimates the population of Stayton in 2040 at 12,700, basically. And with that, we prepared another master plan capital priority list. And with that, you can go to the next slide. We're not going to be able to see that very well, and I apologize. Darn it.
We will email this out to council.
Very good.
So you'll be able to see this tomorrow.
So this actually shows you the basins. And so the south basin there, down by the river, that's Basin 2. And Basin 1 is up by Councilor Quigley's house. And Basin 3 is over, basically it's downtown, okay? Those where the major issues are at. Right now, you can go to the next slide. I wish we could see this better, I apologize. You can see the red dots in downtown there. Those are 3 manholes that are overflowing with the existing sewer flows that we have right now. And so that prevents us from allowing any development in the downtown area. Otherwise, we're going to be overflowing. So what we've been doing for the last month is we've been looking at the different projects. Next slide. And you can see Ida Street going up there. That's Priority 1 project. The Priority 1 project was 2 phases. Well, it was 5. We've kind of put them into 2 phases. But right now we're in phase 1. It'll take us up to the NORPAC property on Ida Street. Phase 2 will take us all the way to Evergreen and north on Evergreen, all the way up to Washington Street. When that's concluded, we'll be able to build the NORPAC property north of the cannery site, the parking lot, and we'll be able to build up to 100 lots east of there in the downtown area. That's how we modeled it just recently. But soon thereafter, we're going to have to build the Priority 2.4 project, which is shown in yellow there. And that takes us all the way to First Avenue, up to Marion Street and down Marion Street, approximately 4 or 5 blocks. That is an 18-inch line. Currently, it's a 12-inch line. Right now, we can't allow much development east of town out by Mayor Quigley's spot, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Quigley's house, east of Pioneer Park, east of the Woolen Mill property. We can't develop any of that until that's been done, okay? And then after that, we'll go back up and we'll finish the Priority 2.3 project, which takes us into downtown. By doing the phase 2 of the Ida Street project and including going up to Washington Street, it allows us to have a 2.5-foot freeboard from overflowing in those manholes out on First Avenue. So that project needs to get done. Right now, we have a 1/2 foot from the rim of those 3 manholes until overflowing. So any kind of development occurring right now will just blow sewer out of the manholes. So, well, can you shrink that down just a little bit? Oh, sorry. This is basically a summary, so hopefully you guys can see this. There we go. And I wasn't finished with this until about 6 o'clock tonight, so they weren't able to email it to you. So just to summarize, Stayton has significant sewer capacity issues in the existing pipes in basins 2, 3, and 4. Basically the downtown corridor from Ida Street north and east. Phase 2 of the Priority 1, after running several scenarios of the sewer model, it was determined that we can allow some development occur, but it needs to be in controlled fashion. So that the moratorium is not necessarily true, but we have up to 100 EFUs in the East Basin to allow development. So State Family Building Blocks, I talked to her today and I'm meeting her tomorrow, we'll allow that development. We'll be allowing other developments too. But each development that comes in for a site plan review, we're gonna have to have modeled until we have these other projects done, just to make sure we have capacity. Phase 2 of the Priority 1 project will need to be completed before any other larger developments occur in the 3 basins. Flows out of these basins will need to be modeled. Controlled development basins 1 and 2 will be allowed after Phase 1 of the Priority 1 project is complete, which is September of 2023. Each development sewer flows will need to be added to the model and verify sufficient capacities. These are the steps that we're going to be going forward until those 3 projects, the Priority 1 projects complete, the Priority 2.3 projects complete, and the Priority 2.4 projects complete. We're talking about a period of 8 years if we go year after year after year. It's about an $8 million project. But until that happens, we're not going to allow development to occur without analyzing it, and there'll be severe restrictions on some development. We do have alternatives depending on who's developing. We have developers right now that are looking at a couple of different sites that are like 300 lots. They have proposed perhaps doing some alternative financing and building the line themselves, as long as the city may enter into an agreement that we'd pay them back for their work over a period of years. That is not unheard of. I've done those in the Clean Water Services districts before. So there are ways that we can get this expedited, grants, loans, or partnerships with developers, and that's how we'll be able to do that. Otherwise, it's going to be about an 8-year project, and we're going to have to commit resources to it. If you go to the next slide. And again, you can't see that, but and I apologize, but that is kind of the plan. That's the tentative timing and the cost of the projects for the next 8 years. I imagine we'll send those to you guys tonight or tomorrow. You can look at them. If you have any questions regarding those, please give me a call or email me. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have now, and hopefully I can clear it up for you.
And before I think Lance, 8 years is based on what we project from rates and fees. I've made it clear that I don't think 8 years is like, we're going to try really, really, really hard for a lot of, talking with developers, getting grants, seeking loans, seeing what the best options are, because I can't. That feels like a long time for me, and I think Lance is always very very practical, and that's wonderful. And he's kind of come along that that we're going to try really, really hard to get these projects done sooner. So I just, before you guys start asking those questions, I think 8 years is the not worst case scenario.
I would agree with Julia. Again, I am the practical guy, and but I'm going to tell you this: I'm always looking for money to help this city out. As is, we got $4 million for that ASR. We got $500,000 for Phase 1 from Marion County for this Phase 1 project. We are always looking for dollars to help, but we haven't looked for grants. I mean, we've only looked at grants. We haven't looked for loans. And so if that maybe is the direction we want to do as a low interest loan, complete it and get it done in 2 years, that's something that we can entertain. But we are always looking for money to help us do things in this city. That's, but I agree with Julia. If we can get it done earlier, we will.
And I think we've mentioned in the weekly updates that we are talking with, hopefully we will be having a conversation with different state agencies to see about the viability of a low interest loan or a loan, and just so that we can kind of discuss what makes the most sense. It very well could be that working directly with developers is the best option, but we'll be exploring that, and then as we get answers, we'll share that with council too.
Tammy, could you go back like 4 slides? I want to show them this, and I'm right there. So no, the next one. So when you look at this slide, it says existing system evaluation maximum flow. You can see on there, it's color coded. All the lines that are in red, those are the lines that are already over capacity, that we cannot put any more sewer in. And that prompted us to not deny, but we said, look, you got to show you have capacity in the sewer line in front of you. And and no one has been able to. So we started being proactive about it and trying to figure out how much development could we occur with that full capacity lines. And that's what's taken a month. We've had to do it segment by segment. We've looked at all the pre-application folks that have come in and talked about development. We've added those to the model. We've got a current model of 2023, and we look at them individually. And then I added an additional 100 lots east of town up by 28th to see how it would flow through the entire system, and it works. There's no overflowing. It hasn't overflowed up on Main Street in the model. So that was good. That was good news last Friday.
And also, I want to commend Lance and his crew for continuing to explore. It's complicated. I mean, this is a lot of information, and it's complicated and narrowing it down. But when we first thought we might have a moratorium, we might be stuck, he didn't. He continued to press and say, well, what if we look at these things? And so we're not at a point where we're saying, no, there's no development, but we're at a point where we know some things, it's tight, and we're working really hard to untighten it, I guess. But because of the continuing persistence that Lance did, we have more answers, and so we're actually able to help people through the process. So I want to commend him on that.
I think it's controlled development, like I said, and 100 lots, that's all we modeled. I mean, maybe we could have went more and tried it, but 100 lots in this city is like, well, we've developed about 100 lots since I've been here, so, 8.5 years.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McDonald.
Actually, I'm curious about that because of the developments that are in progress right now. Do we think we'll be okay with those?
Yeah, Councilor, when I said we updated the model to 2023, I included the 100 lots out on Golf Club, the 70 lots on 3rd Avenue, and the 20-something out on East Santiam. It's a full model. Everything that's been developed since 2021 is in the new model. So we know what the flows are, we know what's in the lines at this current point, and then we started adding development that has come in and talked to us about pre-apps, and we added an additional 100 just to see what it looked like.
Great, thanks.
Councilor Patty.
Yeah, thank you. Lance, thank you for this, and thank you for the work you've been doing for the last month. Just as a policy direction, I heard you talking about lending through the state and things like that. I'd be more interested to hear about some of these partnerships, what this could look like, bringing everybody to the table, because I feel like those people are our stakeholders in this, and if they're at the table, we can have some kind of solution that fits Stayton and not something that we're dumping money into from lending. That's just my preference as a policymaker up here. I realize you got 4 other folks to work for, but that's my direction.
Councilor Sims.
You probably already answered this before, Lance, and I think you told me once before, but what is the total cost of this project over 8 years? Or do you have those numbers?
I think I might.
I kind of figured you did.
I'm glad I brought the slides myself, because I thought it was going to come out looking better than that, so I apologize on that. Let me see here, just roughly 5.2, 2.2, that's 7.5, about 8.5 million.
Thank you.
But we've already spent $1 million or so off the phase 1 project, so about 7 million more. And that would take care of all of the projects. And we'd be full go on everything east of town. That would open up 500 to 700 single-family homes. Not that anybody wants to develop that quickly, but that's what it would open up.
Thanks, Lance. Anybody else? Thanks, Lance.
All right, thank you.
Communication from city staff, Julia.
The only thing I have is I would like to invite Chief Johns back up to share primarily what we are doing for National Night Out this year.
Thank you. So we've enjoyed so far this summer being involved with our community events. 4th was very heavy for us with the fun run. the parade and the fireworks display. So we were all hands on deck for that and got some help from couple other cities and Public Works, so that was greatly appreciated. But moving forward, we're looking forward to having a table and booth for Summerfest and engaging there. We're going to have hopefully some cornhole, which, you know, any sort of activities to get people over and chatting is part of that fun. The last Friday with RDS, we're going to participate in the August with having a police car out there and some activities for the kids. And then National Night Out, annual national event, first Tuesday in August. And I know there's been a lot of different ways that the city has addressed National Night Out. I know at one point it became kind of a big city maybe party at the parks. Under Chief Friesendahl's direction, he wanted to see it get back more to the neighborhoods and be the organic type of National Night Out event that it originally was. And that's the way we're going to really continue at this point. The idea is about getting to know your neighbor, exchanging emails, you know, however you communicate, phone numbers, but getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the families that live right near you, as opposed to traveling across town to a big city park. While that's nice and fun, we're thinking the intimate neighborhood gathering where there's more conversation. We can come in, representatives from the police department, and discuss very local concerns that they have in their neighborhood, which we see each neighborhood kind of has their own unique and special concerns or issues that they want to discuss. So we do have a registration on our website under the police department header. And while it says registration, it's basically a way for people to tell us that they're going to have a neighborhood gathering so that we can make sure to put it on our agenda and be present. So we anticipate that we'll have staff at each neighborhood gathering that lets us know they're having a gathering. Any questions in regards to National Night Out?
Chief, I do. So you mentioned the previous way the city used to do it, and having it at different parks, and the police department would travel around to those different parks. My preference is that we go back to doing that, and simply because of this, it's more inclusive. How many people have you had sign up, or how many neighborhoods have you had say we're having a National Night Out? So
I know of a handful of them, you know, so,
Yeah.
and I think last year it was similar as well. And I didn't see how they did it before, and yes, I know they were well attended. My understanding, and you know, I'm just a conversation,
Sure.
is that there was a lot of money and time,
Sure.
and it was very much every person on staff was on duty, as well as reserves, which we don't currently have, and cadets. So that would be a time-intensive thing, you know, if that's the direction we chose to go as a city.
Sure,
I think last year we didn't have the staffing that we could really pull that off. And so I think as well was just the opportunities to have that more intimate, smaller conversations, right? People are more willing to have those conversations in those smaller settings than the big kind of festival sort of settings. But
yeah, I think part of the issue might be back when we had those, we had them at almost every park, or at least 4 parks. Sure, we can reduce that. And I think what I would like to see is have it at the major parks, because it's more of inclusive for people that live in the immediate area to come out there. It really was a case of involvement with the community in that particular neighborhood. You guys had it at Pioneer Park. It was huge. We had burgers, hot dogs, food. They had music. They had the McGruff crime dog show up. It was fantastic for the kids. And last year, the last time we did it, I cruised over there thinking, okay, it's going to be National Night Out at Pioneer Park again, and it was crickets. Nothing was going on. And so in my neighborhood itself, no one in that neighborhood had an opportunity to get together because no one took initiative to do it.
Right.
And that's why I really think I'd like to see it kind of get back to where the city sponsored it, much like Sublimia is going to do. Sublimia is having a huge deal on it. It's at the church park. The sheriff's going to be there, you know, the town's there. And so I just, from my standpoint, I think it just brings us together a little bit more by having a function sponsored by the city. And if it comes down to funding, I'll be the first one to throw in a donation. So just throw it out there.
Okay.
So I appreciate you doing it, but I would like to see it more formal.
Sure.
And maybe, I'm just, sorry, I'm just listening, but as you guys were talking, if it's multiple parks, that might be something that next year we can talk with the Parks Board about, see if they can help take the lead on some hosting or something like that. That just might be something that, that there could be, sorry, Lance, I'm throwing that out.
I would speak to it, but it's another time.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I know we have, I don't know what condition they are, but we have the old barbecuers, we've got lots of coolers, and like I say, I think a little bit of it was staffing, you know, so we would want some participation from other hands, you know, that could help with the barbecuing and the preparation for it, so to help make it successful.
By all means, I'm not putting the onus on the police department itself. It's got to be the city, and that takes all hands, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
I don't have anything else unless you have any questions for me or any of the staff that are here.
Anybody? Well, I want to just bring communication from council. Anybody?
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Mayor, I just want to take a quick moment to say, nice job, Julia, on this homeless thing. Because, I mean, this task force, all these ideas, like, nice job. It was a long, arduous process to get here just to this point, and so thank you for your work on this issue.
Thank you, and we are not done yet.
Since Lance kind of scooted the issue, I'm going to bring it up real quick. One of our discussions among council was to see some more activity, per se, from the committees. You can sit down, Lance. I'm just tossing it out there. And one of our thoughts was to have, like the Parks Board, have objectives and goals. And so when the liaisons from the council go there, we actually have direction on what they're working on, what projects they're working on. That'd be a great example of the Parks Board, throwing that in front of the Parks Board. We were talking about the Mill Creek Park, different possibilities, but we would like to see those committees be active in facilitating goals and objectives to feed the council so we can follow up on it. So just to throw it out there. With that, I don't have anything else. Oh, Councilor McDonald, go ahead.
Sorry, just to that point, the last Parks Board, I did bring up the meeting that you and I and Councilor Patty had with Brian from North San Diego Youth Sports, and so he's on board. I was going to have him, actually I was going to ask you because he needs contact information.
Oh.
But he's tried to contact the previous director, I think, and didn't have a lot of luck, so.
Okay. Do you have it, Julia?
So you need the contact for the gentleman from North San Diego Youth Sports. I can get that for you.
I have it, and if you need it. I just didn't know if you had it previously, so no problem.
We're on board. I think the Parks Board is on board with getting something going in Mill Creek Park.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it, really. With that, we'll adjourn.